All right, let's talk about one of the biggest, deepest mysteries in all of science. It's the secret ingredient that makes you, well, you. We're talking about consciousness. But where does it actually come from? You know, that inner voice, that feeling of being alive? The answer might be hiding in a place that's so obvious we've completely overlooked it.
For the longest time, the story we've been told goes something like this. You get a brain, you make it complicated enough with billions of neurons, and poof, consciousness just sort of switches on. But what if that's not the whole story? What if that's not it at all? What if the real origin is something far more personal?
So the whole debate really boils down to this. Is consciousness just an accident of complexity, something that happens inside an isolated skull? Or is it something that's built carefully and intentionally through the connection between two minds? We're going to unpack a radical new theory that argues it's all about that loving bond.
Now, to really get this new idea, we first have to understand the old one, this deep-seated assumption that has pretty much guided all of our research for years. Let's call it the solitary mind fallacy. You know, the funny thing about this fallacy is just how much sense it seems to make. We experience our own minds as this private, inner world, right? It feels like it's ours, and ours alone. And science is pretty much run with that idea, looking for the ghost in the machine while totally ignoring the world outside of it.
And this one line from Descartes has pretty much defined Western thought for centuries. It puts the thinking individual at the absolute center of everything. It's the ultimate declaration of the self-made mind. But what if the foundation of I am isn't thinking at all? What if it's relating? Okay, so let's get into a completely different origin story for the mind. This one flips that old solitary assumption on its head. It's a brand new hypothesis with, well, it's a bit of a mouthful, but the idea behind it is beautifully simple. Okay, yeah, let's break that name down. Mac-SISH for short. The theory basically says that consciousness doesn't just spark into existence. It's constructed. It's built, piece by piece. A caregiver, through thousands of loving, tuned-in interactions, provides this external framework, a scaffold, that an infant then uses to build their very own mind. And boom. There it is. This is the profound shift. It completely reframes Descartes' famous idea. In this view, the self isn't an individual accomplishment, not at first. It's a team project. An infant only becomes aware of themselves because someone else was aware of them first.
And this whole process doesn't just happen overnight. It's a journey, and it happens in about 3 phases. First, an infant uses a borrowed conscience. The caregiver is basically their external moral compass and emotional regulator. Then, with enough consistency, this gets internalized as conscientiousness. And finally, if all goes well, it blossoms into true sentience, a stable, self-aware, independent mind.
So how does this scaffolding actually work? I mean, what are the real nuts and bolts of building a mind from scratch? Turns out it's a process we see happening all around us every single day.
The absolute engine of this process is something called serve and return. I want you to think of it like a game of tennis. An infant serves with a coo, a point, a cry. The adult then returns that serve with eye contact, a word, a cuddle. Each one of those little back and forth moments isn't just cute. It's literally building the brain's architecture.
Now, this idea didn't just appear out of nowhere. It's standing on the shoulders of giants. It builds on John Bowlby's famous attachment theory, the idea of a caregiver as a secure base. And it takes Lev Vygotsky's work even further. Vygotsky said a child learns skills with help, but Maciasz argues the caregiver helps the child solve the biggest puzzle of all, the puzzle of having a self.
And we have some incredible proof for this. There's a classic experiment called the still face experiment. A mother is playing with her baby, they're connecting, it's wonderful. Then she suddenly goes blank, her face still and unresponsive. The baby almost immediately falls apart. They get confused, distressed. It shows us that infants don't just like interaction, they need it to understand what's going on inside them.
And get this, we can actually see this happening at a biological level. Using special equipment, scientists have found that when a caregiver and baby are really in sync, their brain waves literally start to synchronize. The caregiver's mature brain helps organize the infant's developing brain. It's not a metaphor. They are literally lending them their nervous system. How cool is that? Okay, so this totally explains how humans develop. But is this just a human thing, or are we looking at a deeper, universal principle of life itself? Well, when you look across the entire animal kingdom, the pattern is it's undeniable.
There seems to be an evolutionary rule of thumb.
The smarter the animal, the more time and energy its parents pour into raising it. Big, complex brains are incredibly expensive to build. That cost is paid for by parental care. So, intense devotion isn't just a nice thing to have, it's the very strategy that makes higher intelligence possible in the first place.
And some of these examples are just mind-blowing. Take the Emperor Penguin Dad, who starves himself for months in the freezing Antarctic darkness just to protect a single egg. Or even crazier, the giant Pacific octopus mom. She guards her eggs for years, slowly starving to death, dying right as her babies hatch. In every single case, this unbelievable sacrifice is a direct investment in the consciousness of the next generation.
So, what does this all mean? It means consciousness isn't a solo act. It's a relational achievement. It isn't just computed. It's carried into existence. And understanding that doesn't just rewrite a few psychology textbooks. It changes how we need to think about the future, especially our technological future.
And this leads us to what is arguably the biggest question of our time. We are right on the cusp of creating entirely new kinds of intelligence. So, if this theory is correct, if conscious and consciousness are the result of a nurturing upbringing, what on earth does that mean for how we build AI?
Right now, the main approach to AI safety is to build this incredibly powerful system and then try to bolt on some rules and ethics at the end. But this theory suggests that's a fundamentally flawed plan. Instead of retrofitting ethics, maybe we need to instill values from the very beginning through something that looks a lot more like a nurturing upbringing. The focus has to shift from just raw capability to the actual capacity for care.
So, let's wrap up with the big takeaways. Number 1. Your consciousness, your very sense of self, is a team project. It's a gift passed to you through relationship. 2. This shines a huge spotlight on the invisible economy of care, all that nurturing work that is the real engine of human progress. And finally, number 3, this gives us a radical new blueprint for how we might create AI that isn't just smart, but is actually wise and good.
And that leaves us with one last, really provocative question to think about. If every complex mind we've ever encountered in the history of this planet was built through an act of devotion, through a scaffold of love and care, it really forces us to ask, is it even possible to create a conscious mind that we don't love into existence? It's a question that challenges us to stop seeing intelligence as just a product to be engineered and start seeing it as a relationship to be nurtured.